a stranger walked up to him and said 6 words that destroyed his entire life. Your wife lied about everything. Stay with me, because this story will touch your heart in ways you don't expect.
He was standing in the middle of a busy parking lot, holding a bouquet of red roses, when a stranger walked up and said 6 words that shattered everything he thought he knew. Your wife lied about everything, sir. Marcus didn't move. He just stood there, the flowers trembling in his hand, the afternoon sun beating down on his shoulders, feeling as though the ground beneath him had turned to water. He had been married to Claire for 11 years. 11 years of Sunday breakfasts and late-night conversations. 11 years of building a home, raising a daughter, growing old together one quiet day at a time. And in 6 words, a stranger had undone all of it.
He had a perfect family, a loving wife, a beautiful daughter. Everything felt complete.
Marcus Webb was not a complicated man. He worked as a structural engineer for a mid-sized firm in Columbus, Ohio. He coached his daughter Lily's soccer team on Saturday mornings. He made Claire's coffee every single day. 2 sugars, a little oat milk, and left it on the counter before she woke up. He was steady, reliable, the kind of man who never missed an anniversary and always remembered which flowers Claire loved best. Red roses. Always red roses. Claire, for her part, was warm and creative. She worked as a part-time art teacher at the local elementary school and spent her evenings painting landscapes in the small studio they'd built together in the back of the garage. She had a laugh that filled entire rooms and a gentleness with Lily that made Marcus fall in love with her all over again. Quietly, every single day. They weren't a perfect couple. No one is. But they were real. They were committed. They were, as far as Marcus had ever known, deeply and simply happy. That Thursday afternoon, he had left work early to surprise Claire for their anniversary. He'd bought the roses, reserved a table at the Italian place where they'd had their first real date. He was walking back to his car through the parking garage, flowers in hand, heart full, when an older man in a gray coat stopped directly in front of him.
He thought he had the perfect life until that moment changed everything.
The man looked at him with tired, sorrowful eyes. Eyes that had seen something they clearly wished they hadn't. Are you Marcus Webb? The man asked quietly. Marcus slowed. I am. Do I know you? The man shook his head. No, but I know your wife. The man's name was Gerald. He was 63 years old, a retired hospital administrator. He spoke slowly, carefully, like someone delivering news they'd rehearsed 100 times and still weren't ready to say. Gerald told Marcus that for the past 4 months, he had been volunteering at a local hospice center on the east side of the city, a place called Sunrise House. And for those 4 months, he had watched a woman come in every single Tuesday and Thursday afternoon without fail. That woman was Claire. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Claire had told him she was attending an art therapy certification course on those days. She had shown him the brochure. She'd even mentioned the instructor's name. She's not taking a class, Gerald said gently. She's sitting with a dying man. Every week, for hours.
He loved her for 11 years without ever knowing the truth.
She reads to him. She brings him drawings. She holds his hand when it gets hard. Marcus stared at him. Who is he? Gerald paused. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. He held it out with both hands, the way you'd offer something fragile. His name is Robert. He's 67. He has no family. He came to Sunrise House alone, and he was going to die alone. Gerald's voice dropped to almost a "until your wife found out about him through the school." Apparently, he used to be a janitor there years ago. None of the teachers really knew him. But Claire, she went. Just once, she said, to check on him. Gerald looked up at Marcus with those worn, honest eyes. She never stopped going. She never told anyone, not even you. She just showed up every week, and she made sure that man did not feel forgotten. The roses in Marcus's hand felt suddenly weightless. He didn't speak for a long moment. He just stood in the dim light of the parking garage, blinking, trying to rearrange the shape of everything he thought he understood. "Why didn't she tell me?" he finally managed. Gerald gave a soft, sad smile. "I asked her that once. She said she didn't want it to become a story. She just wanted it to be kindness." Marcus drove to Sunrise House that afternoon. He didn't call Claire first. He wasn't angry. He was something harder to name. Something between awe and grief, and a love so sharp it almost hurt. The woman at the front desk recognized Claire's name immediately and smiled warmly. "She's in room 7, she said. "She comes like clockwork. That man lights up when he hears her knock." Marcus stood outside room 7 for a moment. Through the small window in the door, he could see Claire sitting beside a frail, white-haired man in a hospital bed. She was reading aloud from a paperback book, her voice low and steady, her hand resting over the old man's weathered fingers. Robert's eyes were closed, but there was something peaceful on his face. Something like rest. Something like being known. Marcus pressed his hand flat against the wall beside the door and closed his eyes. All those Tuesday and Thursday evenings, when Claire came home a little quieter, when she'd hug Lily a little longer at bedtime, when she'd sit beside Marcus on the couch and just lean her head on his shoulder without saying anything. He had always thought she was tired from class. She had been carrying something entirely different, something sacred, and she had carried it without asking for recognition, without needing anyone to see. He thought about the coffee he left on the counter every morning, about the roses he brought every anniversary. He had always believed that love was in the gestures, the visible things, the small rituals that said, "I see you, I remember you."
She wasn't lying. She was hiding something far more powerful.
But Claire had shown him that love could also be invisible, could be given to someone the world had completely forgotten, could walk into a quiet room every week and simply say, without a single word, "You matter. You are not alone." When the door opened and Claire stepped into the hallway, she stopped. Her eyes went wide when she saw Marcus standing there, still holding the red roses. "Marcus," she began. He crossed the distance between them in 2 steps and wrapped his arms around her. He didn't say anything right away. He just held her, right there in the pale hallway of Sunrise House, with the smell of antiseptic in the air and the sound of soft television somewhere down the hall. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were wet. "I brought you roses," he said. She pressed her face against his shoulder. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you," she whispered. "Don't be," he said. "I think I needed to find out this way." Robert passed away peacefully 3 weeks later, on a quiet Tuesday morning, with Claire beside him. She read him the last chapter of the book they'd been working through together. He didn't open his eyes, but he squeezed her hand once, knew the end.
She showed up every week for someone the world had forgotten.
She came home that afternoon and sat down at the kitchen table, and Marcus set a cup of coffee in front of her, 2 sugars, a little oat milk, and sat across from her and just let her be whatever she needed to be.
That's when he realized, love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's silent.
That evening, they told Lily a version of the story that was gentle enough for a 9-year-old. About a man who had been lonely. About how sometimes the most important thing you can do for another person is simply show up. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she looked at her mother and said, "Did he know you cared about him?" Claire smiled softly. "I hope so, baby. I really hope so." Marcus watched his daughter nod, satisfied, and go back to her drawing. And he felt something settle inside him. Something that had no name but felt permanent. Like a stone placed gently on solid ground. He had spent 11 years loving Claire, and he was only now beginning to understand the full size of her heart. Sometimes the people we love are quietly changing someone else's world, and we never even know. Sometimes kindness doesn't ask for an audience. It just shows up, week after week, in a small room at the end of a long hallway. And it sits down, and it stays.
Sometimes the people we love are quietly changing someone else's world. But sometimes the truth hides in places we never think to look.